Hi guys, so I'm going to go over two types of gauntlet here that are really popular across the HEMA community, and I'm just going to talk about a little bit of their pros and cons and what I think, what my opinions are, and hopefully this will help beginners formulating their own decision when it comes to purchasing their own type of hand protection. So I'm going to go over Spes first, and then I'm going to go over the sparring gloves. So, Spes first. Off the bat, you get a lot of wrist movements, very good. With this type of hourglass cuff shape with the gauntlet, you get a lot of wrist movement, which is great. It's what you need. But with the fingers, because it's a mitten type of gauntlet, you're only going to have a little bit of movement. You can open and close, basically. That is it. With the thumb, yeah, you can move that around, you can swivel that around a little bit. There is a little bit of movement there, but not a great deal. I shall just demonstrate this with a longsword, because longsword's the most popular type of weapon system at the moment when it comes to HEMA. So you can literally open and close, that is it. It's basically just what you need for longsword. When it comes to other weapon systems, it's a little bit different. But with the two types of grips, so you've got false edge and true edge, you can go between those two types of grips just by placing the thumb on the hilt of the sword. But it's a lot difficult to do handshake type grips. But again, you're not really going to be doing that a hell of a lot with longsword anyway. Right, let's put this sword back for a moment. I want to talk about the protection. So what we have here are really quite solid plastic plates riveted to an inner lining that is padded. So you've got very good protection of the hand throughout. And then the cuff here are made from faux leather on a backing of padded liner, basically. I shall show you the inside there. I don't know whether the lighting's going to be too good, but there is an inner lining here of padding. You've got the faux leather. Within this, you've got sewn in plastic hard plates, so you've got nice protection on the wrist and on the cuff. So going into detail, when it comes to protecting the hand completely, it's going to be very difficult, because you're getting less and less movement the more you protect it. It's that age-old question of mobility versus protection. However, there are certain things you can bypass, things you can add and take, which makes mobility greater, and you can actually have more protection. So it depends on what the situation is, really. So yeah, with the fingers, you've got two lanes only. So you've got a plate here and a plate there. Now, with this bottom plate here that's meant to be protecting the ends of the fingers, I think that should be extended over a little bit, because when you close the hand, you get a gap here that's quite large. This triangle here, you can receive thrusts, and you could easily get a broken tip of the finger, or lose a fingernail, or get a very bruised inner thumb there, because that inner part of the thumb is open up to, thrusts going in like that. I mean, it's going to be very unlikely, but with HEMA and protection, there's always going to be a gap that's going to get exploited at some point. It's just the way it is, really. But yeah, my only concern with the protection, really, directly to your flesh, is the inner part of the thumb here and the ends of your fingers. Because if you get a really strong strike in that gap here, that's going to hurt a great deal. But everywhere else is absolutely fine. You usually sometimes get a problem with the blade gliding down, going past the crossguard straight onto the hand. However, I think in this case, on the outside line, so onto my dorsal of my hand, I don't think that's a problem, because the hard plastic on the dorsal plate here is actually protecting the top of your well, where your index finger is and areas like that. It's a bit different on the thumb because you can easily get a blade that glides down here, and that's going to go straight onto the inside, and it can strike one of the thumb plates here, but if it goes straight onto your thumb, all you have is, if I just put the sword down for a moment here, all you have is this plate, 3 plates here of foam. That's not enough protection, I don't think. I think that this plastic plate here should be more shaped to the end of a finger or an end of a thumb, that allows greater protection in case of that blade gliding down. All you have is zip ties and bungee type cords that are, you know, bringing it to all together onto this padded lining that's on the end of the thumb here, and you've got a basic plate, and that's it. You're going to get hit at some point at the end there. That's going to go straight into your fingernail or thumbnail, and that's going to hurt. So just be wary of that. The other thing I usually be wary about when it comes to plate armor, when it comes to the lames, so these plates here, yes, they overlap when you are clenched, when you've got a clenched fist. There's no direct way of actually getting in there. However, thrusts are a little different. This is a spatulated tip for a Siggy sword. The brand is Siggy, and you can see here that I know it's very unlikely, but you can get a blade in there. I mean, it's a bit different with rolled tips. I reckon a rolled tip could even get in there as well. That's not gonna, why I'm not concerned too much. I'm concerned about the blade being bent more than the actual damage to the hand, because this is not going to damage the hand at all. This is just going above the hand itself, and it, if anything, will actually damage the inner workings of the gauntlet. So I don't think that's going to directly hurt you, but it might. If you don't know what's going to happen if that gets jammed, you don't want that. You just want something that's going to glance off on a strike or a thrust. So construction wise, these plastic plates that are riveted to the inner lining of the gauntlet, very good. The padding is very good, and my only concerns are this buckle here. I don't think it's necessary to have that. It does virtually nothing. It doesn't really increase or decrease the size of the diameter of the wrist. I do think that wrist needs to be narrowed ever so slightly more. The sides of the plates, so we have a bungee cord that actually came off. I don't know where that bungee cord bit has gone, but on the sides here you've got like a fabric loop, and that fabric loop is attached to these 2 holes that go into one of the lames of the finger plates, and that just attaches that on there. You've got these rivets here that are sewn to these fabric liners that go across the lames of the plates, so you've got no risk of a plate completely coming off, but you know there is a gap there, and that can be exploited if that falls off, which it has there. Hasn't on the other side, but again, I've had this for years and years and years, and that's only recent really, so to be honest, it's fairly well structured. Another concern is the fact that the sewing here, I mean, yes, it's relatively strong, but the sewing has actually come loose here, and that's why I was able to get the plastic plate out of the cuff plate there. So just need to be wary of that. When it comes to use, and I've used these a hell of a lot, stuff is gonna fray and get dented and broken and stuff like that eventually. Considering the price, this is great, so I'll leave that there. Oh yeah, I think I've already mentioned this, but I would like to have this plate extended over onto the fingers, so that the actual plate to be curved round, so it's actually directly covering the ends of the fingers, because I think ends of fingers are very delicate and you don't want to get them damaged or broken, and it hurts. So, okay, we'll move on to the sparring glove gauntlet. In this case, I have the long cuff. You can have a short cuff, which directly goes almost to the like one of these lanes here, and you get a short cuff. You've got a medium, which only extends to about here, and then you've got the long cuff, which has the extra plate going up here. The reason why I chose that is because I wanted to have a jacket, not using, if hopefully the microphone's not going to pick this up too much. The way that the gauntlet has been designed is with the long cuff, is so that the cuff plate, which also is really a forearm plate, goes all the way up to my elbow plate here. So I'm completely covered with hard plastic and hard foam. So yeah, I should take that off just briefly, because I want to talk about the mobility and protection of this gauntlet. So off the bat, you have to wear inner lining, because otherwise you're going to get chafing and it's going to hurt, you're going to get sores and it's going to bleed. And yeah, that was when I used these for the first time, I ended up getting almost like carpet burns on the inside of my hands here, just by using them without anything on the inside. So I very much recommend you wear running gloves. There's also the choice of using boxer inner lining gloves here. You know, these don't have the fingers on the thumb, so just be aware of that. But these are very good because the padding on the on here on the knuckles secures your hand within the gauntlet. But it does take a little more effort to actually get them on the inside of the hand here. In this case, with these running gloves, it's basically you just slip them on. It's great. So mobility, again, like with the Spes gauntlet, you've got loads of mobility here, but that is because of the lames that are on the wrist here. Again, that is a point of vulnerability, I think. If you get a direct strike here, that's going to be quite painful. However, it's not going to break anything. And plus, when you've got this on with the jacket, this actually compresses, so all the plates and lames overlap, and you've got a much stronger defense here. So you're actually quite protected anyway. Mobility, yes, this is a mitten gauntlet, so all you have really is open and close. However, because this is made of fabric and hard foam, you're able to actually change the orientation of your hand and produce more of a handshake grip than just doing that. So you're able to change. These are nicely broken in, by the way, so I'm able to do that. When you buy these new, it's a bit different, so you've got to break them in. So there is good movement there, good movement in the wrist, good movement in the fingers. I think really good for a mitten. And for thumb as well, you're able to move your thumb quite freely around, open and closing. You've got a really big plate that is covering the thumb, and you've got these two lames here that also covering the joint of the thumb, and you've got this hard plastic. This is the only bit that's hard plastic that's covering encompassing the entire your thumb, apart from just on the inside there. I think that's great design. You know, with the open and close of the hand, you're very well protected. Your thumb is pretty well protected, especially on the inner part of the joint there. Right, let's put the other one on, and I'm going to show you what it's like wearing a long sword, and then I'll show you the vulnerabilities and where I would make changes if I could. So I'm in fluke position here, so I'm got a general grip on the sword here. So both hands are very well protected, very well closed here. So if I just take my hands off, oh dear. So very closed gap here, very good. Any strikes, it's going to glance off. The thumb, very well protected there. The only vulnerability is just on the inside there, but again, if you get a thrust there, that's extremely unlikely going to happen, especially when you've got the thumb false grip. So that's nicely protected here. One big vulnerability is this split in the gauntlet here. A thrust is directly onto the flesh, basically. You've got this fabric here, which is fine, but a thrust directly in, again, it's very unlikely that'll happen, but that is going directly onto your flesh. So if I was to make any changes, I would actually close these two lanes here, have them sewn together, or laced together with grommets and rivets. So I would personally do that. However, that is it. That is the only changes I would make. I would probably, with the extended cuff, extend the end here over a little bit, but that's because I have quite long arms, and you know, that is a standard size, so it doesn't really matter too much. And you very rarely get hit directly here. It's usually on this side anyway, so it's fine. Doesn't worry me too much, to be honest. So again, an advantage with this type of gauntlet is because, like I demonstrated on my left hand here, you're able just to free yourself, free your hand, and you can do stuff like that. You know, changing pages in the book, looking at something, operating a camera, whatever. You're able to just free yourself from the mitten gauntlet, and you can quite easily get back into using your hand, being protected again. Very good. Say if you've got a sword on the floor, because picking up stuff with mittens on the sword on the floor, now I can just pick it up with a free hand, place this down here, and then I can easily get back in, and now I'm protected and I can start sparring. Very good, very well designed there. It reminds me of those, you know, late 12th and 13th century type of mail mittens that are actually attached to the sleeves of the hauberk, you know. What else? The vulnerability as well, I find that these lacing points here are too weak. It uses the same fabric as these lacing points here, and both here have actually split and come off. I would use very much stronger type of lacing compared to this, because that frayed and it detached and came off, and I had a thumb plate flying off. That is very much a con for this type of gauntlet, I think. So I would upgrade this type of lacing. The other thing I would change is the fabric on the inside here. Now I've used it enough, I've got a good grip on it, but when I had it first off, it was quite slippy and slidey, and I didn't like that. However, I use these now, so I've got a very good placing on the inside of my hand, and it slips around a lot less. So that was very much of a remedy for that. That was somebody from the club who had that idea to make use those. And what I do like is the fact that because the fabric has been sewn over any of the gaps, any strike or thrust is just going to glance off. Very good. I like that, because you're not going to get the sword stuck anywhere, compared to these where you've got the gaps in the lames where you can get a thrust and it'll get stuck and jammed. I do like the fact that the plate of the fingers, end of the fingers here, this plate here has been extended over so that the ends of the fingers are completely covered, and when you close your fist, it's also covering parts of your thumb as well. So that is good. I like that. So one point I did miss with the Spes is the fact that with these are covering the whole forearm. These Spes ones are just covering the cuff of your wrist. So when you're wearing your jacket, you have to have these on as well, especially if you're doing steels. Even with plastics, you can get a really nasty hit, and that's going to bruise, and in worst case scenario, break your radius, or somewhere along one of your forearm bones. Very unlikely, but if someone is very aggressive, which they shouldn't be, but if it does happen and they break your forearm, then oof, that's bad. So you need to wear these And then when you wear these, put your, that's the wrong glove, put your Spes gauntlets over the top, so you are fully protected on the forearm. You've got a elbow plate, you've got your forearm van braces here, and then the cuff actually overlaps. Problem is here you have less mobility. Also, you've actually increased the silhouette size of your forearm, which gives you less mobility when you're doing stuff like cross ox and Neschel Hau, where you have to cross your arms over and do certain movements like a Svirch Hau, for instance. Much harder because you're thicker, you're much more padded. You're also more vulnerable to strikes on the cuff, and you might lose 2 points in a competition. You don't want that. So getting rid of that access silhouette, let's take this off, and replacing it with something that's a lot finer, a lot thinner and closer to the body. So this silhouette here is much thinner. I'm able to do much more. I've got more mobility. I'm still very well protected, and I'm able to do these cross movements around. Yeah, so just keep that in mind. I'm not dissing Spes gauntlets too much because, well, not at all really, because they're actually a very good product. So I'll wrap up here. I do think that if you had the choice of purchasing between these two, go for the sparring gloves, because they're very well designed, very well protected for your hands. However, if you end up choosing Spes gloves, you've still got a very good product here. You've got loads of protection, very thick padding, hard plastic, it's very durable, it's going to last you years. So very good products overall. Only minor small changes for these, so I would recommend both, but this has the edge. In my opinion, it has the edge. It might be a different opinion for other people. Hard plastic might be required instead of these foam, but you can still take an absolute walloping with these, and you'll be absolutely fine. So I'll stop there, because otherwise I'll end up talking forever and ever, which I don't want to do, and keep this video fairly short, sort of, anyway. I'll leave it there. Let me know what you think. Any comments, fantastic. Obviously, all I wanted to do is just convey this information to you, especially for beginners, because they need to know this kind of stuff before investing all that money into these gloves, because they're not cheap, but they're not massively expensive. So yeah, just wanted to convey that information out there so that it's available to you. Okay, right, I'll leave it there. Have a good one, folks, and I shall see you on the next one.